Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening to everyone. We are about to start. Could we all stand? And I will ask Minister Evelyn to lead us in a word of prayer, please.
Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of grace to ask your presence in this gathering. We ask for your grace and your mercy. We ask you to give us clear minds, Lord Jesus, as we bring our government, the Nevis Island administration, to the people here in St. James. We thank you for a wonderful meeting last week, and we are asking you that we'll have a similar one here tonight at the Franklin Brown Community Center. We ask to bless all of the ministers on the head table, give us clear minds and soundness of thought. And we ask you to bless the audience as well, and bless those who are on their way, quicken their steps. And may all that is be said and done tonight, dear God, be to your glory and your honor, and as well to the overall development of our people and our island. All these mercies we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Minister Evelyn. Good evening, one and all. Thank you for gracing us with your presence here at the Franklin Brown Community Center. Tonight is the second in the series of conversations to the people by the Nevis Island Administration. And what each minister will do is to give you an account of its stewardship in the past months and proposals going forward. There will be a question and answer segment at the end, and so I would want you to listen keenly and to have your questions ready when we get to that section. For starters, I would want to ask persons to put their telephones on silent or to turn them off so that we don't have any unnecessary disturbances this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll get right into the conversation, and I will want to call on, first of all, Minister Troy Liburd to start our open discussion this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister Randy Williams. Pleasant good night to everyone gathered here this evening. Pleasant good night to all those of you who are following via virtual media, whether you're watching us on NTV, listening via Von Radio, or you're looking at us on YouTube or Facebook, or via any other form of social media. I want to welcome you to this, our second in this revamped series of town hall meetings dubbed Conversations with the People, an opportunity for members of the general public to come out and listen to what your government has been doing for you, the people of Nevis, and an opportunity for you to interact with your government, to ask the necessary questions, to make comments and so on. This indeed is an opportunity for government and the people to interact. We have been given a mandate to govern on behalf of the people, and we can only do that if from time to time we come and we listen to the people. I want to, at the start, thank God for his mercies. Just yesterday we were under a little storm. It's not the big hurricane or tropical storm, but nonetheless, it was a storm. I saw videos where there were flooding and so on over on our sister island of St. Kitts. And I want to thank God that nothing really bad has happened here on the island of Nevis. And we would hope that throughout the rest of the hurricane season, that we can stay the same way, of course. I want to start off by speaking a bit. As you know, I'm charged with looking over the Ministry of Education, and education has been hampered in quite some ways by the onset of the COVID-19 virus. Our whole lives, all of us here on the island of Nevis, have been affected in some shape or form by COVID-19. Just recently, I think we all would know by now that just recently, one of our biggest employers on the island of Nevis, the Four Seasons Resort, they started doing some layoffs. And, all of this is due to COVID. This was a year that I think you would have heard the Premier say several times that all of the projections for Four Seasons were that they were going to have one of their best years in 2020. But that has not panned out because of COVID, and it has affected every single thing. Our schools have been out. We've had no physical classes since 2 weeks before it was supposed to be the end of the second term. We weren't able to have the usual third term of school here on the island of Nevis. We were able to implement some virtual classes. First of all, we were able to use a platform in conjunction with Flow, the Flow Learn platform, where we were able to upload some of the class material relevant to the various classes, so each student could go on and look at the class material that was relevant to them and get some guidance in digesting the material. We were then able to deploy a teaching platform, and the one selected by us here in the Federation, both Ministries of Education in St. Kitts and Nevis, was the Microsoft Teams platform. We were able to deploy Microsoft Teams in all of our schools, actually. Some of them came on earlier than others, but it was not something that we here on the island of Nevis were accustomed to. So, all in all, our normal way of doing things has been disrupted, and we have had to find ways to adapt. We are now at the end of July, and we are therefore in the summer months fully. This is the time when the students are accustomed to have their off time. CXC exams would have normally been over by now, both at the CSEC level and at the CAPE level, but our fifth formers and sixth formers are still doing exams. Of course, we know the storm yesterday would have resulted in some of the students who were supposed to write exams yesterday. Those exams have been put off, and we are working together with CXC now to reschedule a date for those exams to happen. So the students will get that notice shortly once CXC and the local education folks here have come up with a date. We will have those exams done shortly. So some students who were looking at their exams being completed by tomorrow, they now will have to wait maybe another week or so to have their exams completed. But we give God thanks nonetheless for the situation as it is. We are continuing our preparations for the reopening of schools. As it has been said before, we expect that schools in the Federation, and more specifically here on Nevis, we expect that schools are going to reopen come September. Both ministries are working together, and of course we have to take this school by school. So it's not a one-size-fits-all that will determine the strategy for each school, because of course we now have to be able to observe the rules as it relates to the COVID-19, we're working together with the task force. We have to observe the social distancing. There are certain spacing restrictions that have been put in, and we have to work to meet those challenges. So at the moment, both ministries are working together, going around, looking at the schools, school by school, looking at the populations of the school to see exactly what sort of system we will have in place for each school. So by sometime in the middle of August, we should have all of this set for our primary schools and high schools. In the meantime, the Ministry of Education has been putting on their annual prospective teachers course. We had the first section of the prospective teachers course, and that was completed last week. And the prospective teachers course for this year, of course, had to be different from what we did in past years. In this year, we had to train the prospective teachers to not only give instruction inside a classroom setting, but they have to be trained to be able to give instruction virtually. Because none of us knows where we are going to go. You know, in the not too distant future with this COVID, we don't know how long it's going to be around. We don't know if eventually when borders are open, if we here in Nevis are going to be exposed to COVID. So we have to train and prepare for those eventualities. As you would have heard this morning, as relates to our early childhood centers, our preschools, and our daycares, as the Premier would have said this morning in his press conference, that once the early learning childhood centers are able to meet the thresholds that we have put in place, they can open immediately. The government understands and the Ministry of Education understands that it is extremely important to get our early childhood centers, our daycares, and our preschools back up and running. And so we have worked together with the task force, and we have worked together with the board that deals with early learners, with the it's called the Probation and
Child Welfare Probation Board. Child Welfare and Probation.
Yes, the Probation and Child Welfare Board. And Probation and Child Welfare Board, we have put together the necessary protocols, and once the centers can meet those protocols, they can be open. We've also had training with the center owners and with the teachers in these daycares and in the preschools, and so they have been trained to deal with the new realities in terms of COVID and so on. So we are hopeful that some of these centers will come on stream shortly, as quickly as possible, so that we can have some of our young children going back to daycare, and the parents would now be able to come back into the workforce, because quite a bit of our parents have been out of the workforce since the lockdown started and since all of the restrictions to do with COVID-19 have come into place. So once these early childhood centers are reopened, then these parents and so on will be able to come back into the workforce. And I think that will go a long way for us here on the island of Nevis. So it's a new normal for us, but we are working hard to adjust. We are working hard to ensure that our children are well served and that we follow all of the protocols and that our children will be safe whenever they return to school. I think it's important to stress on the health and safety of our students. We want to ensure that whenever they return to school, under whatever system we're going to have ready for September, that the safety and the well-being of our children is the most important thing. That is what we really, really have to ensure that we look out for. So going forward, you can expect a lot more communication from the Ministry of Education. You can expect to see a lot of news items as the situation goes forward. And as I said before, it is not just an effort here on Nevis, but the effort is in both islands. So we are working together to ensure that standard across the Federation is the best possible standard, is the highest possible standard. That's my quota for tonight. I would be happy to answer questions when the question and answer segment comes around. I want everybody to enjoy the rest of the night. And I think it's going to be a wonderful town hall meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Liburd. If I'm to give a little nugget from Minister Liburd, the preschool and daycares are being assessed presently and putting the necessary protocols in place for the eventual reopening because parents need to get back to work. The teachers, the prospective teachers course, the first tranche of trainees was conducted last week, and another tranche will be done sometime later. It's expected that schools will reopen in September, and the technicians, the Ministry of Education, they are doing everything in their efforts to ensure that the schools are opened, but on a phased approach. I probably will believe that the smaller ones will go first, and then the larger ones. And lastly, the 2 platforms are in place, and so students are able to do some work at home. The Flow platform and the Microsoft Teams. That was the report from Minister Liburd. So moving right along, and we will now hear from Minister Brand, the Minister of Communications, et al.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues at the head table. Very pleasant good evening also to the many persons who would have joined us here at the Franklin Brown Community Center. I also want to say good evening to our listeners via Von Radio and also to those who are viewing various online platforms. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here to update the general public very briefly on a few matters that is of concern to all of us. I believe that it is well documented that the Ministry of Communication works have been doing some human service as it regards to our road network development. But I want tonight to give some additional information as to a few other areas that the Public Works Department have been engaged in. And as the Minister of Education would have indicated, COVID-19 would have forced us to go in certain different directions as it regards to our projections for 2020. I believe it was the Minister of Agriculture last week who indicated about the construction of some storage facility at the Prospect agriculture site to house some refrigerators. I want to advise that the Public Works Department has been engaged in that particular construction, and we felt that it was important to partner with the Ministry of Agriculture to help not only in our food security but also to help in bringing some relief as it regards to the situation with COVID. So the building department of the Public Works is presently on that particular job, undertaking the construction there at the agriculture station there in Prospect. We would have also assisted the Ministry of Health, who undertook some upgrade and renovation work there at the GMBC building on Government Road, where they would have undertook some renovation to relocate or to have an outlet for the laboratory at the Alexander Hospital also to add additional support to fight COVID. So, Public Works Department have partnered with Agriculture. We have also partnered with the Ministry of Health in ensuring that we play our part in giving the necessary support to bring the necessary relief in the eventuality for COVID. We also would have done some renovation work in our various offices, because from all reports, the health official would have given us some stipulations as to what they wanted to see in our various offices. So we would have done some renovation work at the physical planning office to ensure that the staff were protected. We would have done some renovation work also at the immigration office in Charlestown. And as you would be aware, the immigration office is one of those frontline offices that needed to have some added protection. Because when you look at the immigration office in Charlestown, they normally deal with persons coming off of these yachts into Charlestown and things like that. So we would have accommodated them in ensuring that we undertook some renovation to give them some protection there in their workplace. We are presently undertaking some construction work at the government repair shop in Prospect, where we are constructing some workspace for the welding team. This, for me, is a very important project because I feel that we had a situation there where a number of employees were taking on some welding jobs, and they were basically out in the open. And I felt very uncomfortable with their working situation. And as a result, we embarked on this particular project to make sure that their working environment was much improved and their safety on the job were also improved. So generally, while the Ministry of Communication embarked on a number of road projects, we are also assisting various ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Immigration, also to give them that extra level of safety and security as it regards to COVID. At the Premier's press conference this morning, he would have indicated some challenges that we were facing as it regards to the water filtration system in Hamilton. And as you are aware, we are undertaking a water filtration project there in the Hamilton area. And I'm happy to announce that we have recently been advised that the technicians have finally agreed to make the trip and have agreed to go into the 14-day quarantine so we can have that project completed. We have at the moment a tentative date of the 1st of September for the arrival, and I'm hoping that 14 days thereafter they can actually commence the actual work on the filtration system. So shortly thereafter, I'm hoping that we can have that system online. We will have some additional 100 gallons of water into the system. So that is a bit of good news that I am hoping that we can stick to that timeline, because we have been waiting for that project to be completed since the start of COVID. And because of the necessary protocols, we have not been able to have these technicians on island to complete the final phase of this project. So I'm very hopeful that we can have that timeline executed. This morning also, the Premier would have given you an update, well, some bad news from Four Seasons. And sad to say that is only a part of the story, because over the past few months, we continue to see a number of businesses that are laying off additional staff because of the COVID. And to date, we have had an additional 294 plus individuals who have been laid off, made redundant because of reducing business. And this number is across the entire spectrum of businesses throughout Nevis, not including the four-season number that the Premier would have announced this morning. Let me make that clear. And when you think about the various businesses in Nevis, we're talking about the tourism sector, construction sector, education and preschool, the real estate, the various bars and other businesses. All of the various businesses are seeing a significant downturn in their businesses, and thus a significant reduction in their revenue, and it leaves them with no choice but to, sadly, to lay off a number of persons. And the number that I've received today is up to an additional 294, and I am hoping that while these persons may be made redundant or laid off, that we can see a quick turnaround in our economy so that these persons can once again obtain gainful employment. The Premier this morning would have also indicated that we are winding down on the two major road projects that we are presently have ongoing. That is the Brown Hill project and the Quaddock Road project. And once those two projects are completed, the aim is that we would go to the Butlers area. I know that the minister and the representative from that area have been on my back for some time. And I just want to say to the good people of St. James's that he have been pressing, he have been agitating, and we are hoping that we can get to that area once we are completed in the two ongoing projects, the Brown Hill and the Quaddock Road project. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, throughout the length and breadth of Nevis, there is a significant demand for improved road network. And the reality is that our limited resources does not allow us to undertake as many of the road infrastructure work that we need to do. And while we recognize that there is the significant demand, I want to appeal to the people of Nevis to be patient with us. I know some persons have been waiting for 10, 15 years for improvement in their road network. But I'm hoping that they can bear with us a little longer so that once the economy begins to fire on all engine once again and we can have the necessary finances, then we can get to some of those secondary and other major roads. I want to stop there at this time because, like I said, I wanted to be very brief tonight because I'm interested in the various questions from the audience. I just want to also report to the general public that we are in possession of the data collection report on the Fort Charles project that was done by Smith Warner International Limited and Environmental Solutions Limited. It is quite a detailed report, and we are at the ministry level digesting it, see how we can move forward with this project once the necessary resources comes available and once we can procure some funding from donor agencies to undertake this project. So that is my brief discourse tonight, and I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Brand. And I am just recapping so that the ideas can be fresh in your minds when it is time for the question and answer segment. Work is nearing completion on the two major roads, Brown Hill and Craddock Road. The Ministry of Communications, with Public Works being the main anchor, has been partnering with various ministries, and they have been doing some work there. Agriculture, as well as the Health Ministry. They have also done some work for the immigration at the Charlestown Police Station, and for workers' safety, they have done some work at the repair shop, as well as in the physical department space, so that their workers could be more comfortable and they can enhance their working environment. As the Minister of Labor as well, he spoke about the layoffs. 294 plus persons have been laid off due to the COVID pandemic, and that is in addition to the 400 plus that would be laid off by Four Seasons as well. And so that, in a nutshell, was the input, ladies and gentlemen, from Minister Brand. As the Minister responsible for health, I would like to continue my discourse from last week, and I will continue to speak about our response to the COVID pandemic and what we are doing at the Ministry of Health. Minister Brand just spoke about the assistance he has given us in health, and what we are doing. We are trying to build more capacity in the laboratory. The laboratory is a small space at the bottom of Alexandra Hospital, and due to the demand that we are expecting in terms of testing, we are moving the testing section of the laboratory to a nearby building. And so the Public Works, they were instrumental in helping us to put that building, make it ready, fit and ready for the purpose of moving the laboratory, the testing portion of the laboratory. So far, we have also procured a new chemistry analyzer and 2 point-of-care machines. And we have also received, just recently, a PCR machine from the Taiwanese government. And we'll also continue to place on record our profound thanks to the Taiwanese. They have been really supporting us in this drive towards acquiring the machine and the equipment that we need to deal with the COVID pandemic. We are also in the process of trying to secure a gene expert machine. And what this machine does, it would be used to do the on-site testing of COVID-19. Not only would it be used for the COVID testing, it's a multifaceted machine, and it would also be used to do tests for TB, HIV, and other viral diseases. And so we are in the process of trying to secure that bit of machine. It would also allow us to do tests on site, and so we will not have to send our tests overseas and then have a waiting time. We'll be able to get rapid response and the results quickly. We have also, as I said, we are moving the testing section of the lab to the new site, and because the lab is a small space, when we acquire the gene expert machine, it would need a certain amount of space. Just like how the protocol says we are to be 6 feet apart, this particular machine needs a certain amount of space so that it can operate, it can function properly. And that is why we are seeking to put this section in another building so that we can get the necessary space for the staff to work, and so that it does not compromise the health of the staff or the integrity of the test results. We are also in a process of trying to purchase a CT scan machine, And this has been something on the table for a very long time. The Friends of Alexandra have established a CT scan fund, and that number, the account number could be had from the Ministry of Health. So if there are persons who are listening and there are persons who are here and they want to make a donation to that fund, they can call the Ministry of Health and you'll be given the account number where you can deposit your contribution towards the purchase of the CT scan. I want to say thank you to Cuba, or friends in Cuba, who would have sent their team of doctors and nurses to assist us. They have fitted in quite nicely, and they have been working assiduously around the clock to assist us in diagnosing and treating. And even though they have come to deal with COVID, they have been dealing with all sorts of other issues that we have, and they have been some at the hospital and others at the EOC unit. And so I would want to go on record in saying thank you to the Cuban embassy for loaning us these persons. They are very professional, and even though in some cases their English is limited, at least they have persons who can translate for them. But in terms of the technical work, they are spot on, and we are indeed grateful to have them. Another project that is ongoing in the Ministry of Health, apart from the major project, there is the main kitchen at Alexandra. The roof is under repairs at this moment, and so the main kitchen site will be at the Flamboyant Home. We are asking persons to bear with us as we go through this transition. We have been going through a number of projects at Alexandra, and we know that it is tough sometimes to work in such conditions. But we are asking the workers as well as our clients to be as understanding as we go through this renovation process. I want to say as well that in this pandemic era, we are seeking to maintain a very high standards in our community health. And so I want to say that the health centers, the 6 health centers, work goes on as usual. They are open, and we want persons to use the health centers as much as possible so as to take the pressure off of Alexandra at this time. We have capable persons, nurses and assistants in these community centers, and we want persons to use the services as regularly as possible. I want to place on record as well my profound thanks to the technicians and the technical staff at the hospital, at the community centers, for the top-notch job they have been doing. I want to just briefly give some statistics as to the COVID pandemic and how it has impacted Nevis. To date, we have only had 4 cases, and all have recovered, 1 male and 3 females. Presently, we have 16 persons currently in quarantine, 7 males and 9 females, and released from quarantine so far is 287 persons, 108 males, and 179 females. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to leave it there as it pertains to my report on the Ministry of Health for this evening. So moving right along, I will now want to call on Minister Eric Evelyn, the Minister of Social Development, et al.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Well, let me say good night to all of us who are here. It is indeed a pleasure for us to be here with you. Last week we had a wonderful meeting at the Cotton Ground Community Center, and we are back with you tonight. Of course, this is the second in a series of town hall meetings that we are having, and which we have dubbed Conversations with the People. I'm sure you would recall that we would have started this series of meetings prior to the general elections, the federal elections. And we have decided that we must continue to dialogue with the people of Nevis. And so we are happy to be back out with you. Of course, at these forums, we expect to hear from you. Most importantly, we will give you a report card of what we have been doing in our various ministries. But most of all, we want to hear from you. And I will be brief as usual, because we normally try to give more time to you, the members of the audience, so we can hear what you have to say in terms of your suggestions, your recommendations, whether you're pleased with us, anything that you think we can do better, we would want to hear from you. Now, I am responsible for a number of areas, including youth, sports, community development, culture, telecommunications, information. This evening, I will just touch briefly on two of those areas, which is youth and social services. Now, irrespective of the fact that we are going through a crisis, a pandemic, and of course I want to say kudos to the folks in the Ministry of Health, to the team under the leadership of Minister Hazel Brandy Williams. They have been doing an outstanding job. But irrespective of that, we know that we must be observing the protocols and so on that have been established internationally. And we also are aware of the fact that many of our departments cannot engage in some of the programs that they are normally involved with. However, they are still involved in a number of programs, and our Department of Youth have been continuing to reach out to our young people on the island of Nevis. Of course, we know our young people are the future leaders of tomorrow, and we are continuing from the Department of Youth to work along with our young people to nurture them and to assist them in any way possible in terms of their personal development and development in some of the areas that they are involved in. Now, earlier this year, we would have launched an initiative from the Department of Youth called Youth Impact 12, where we try to honor and celebrate a young person per month, and we would highlight young persons in different fields. Now, next month, on the 12th of August, that is International Youth Day. And on that day, we will be celebrating some of our young people who have made it onto the Youth Impact 12 roster. This is the month of July, and so we would have celebrated persons in the past months in various fields. And so on International Youth Day, the 12th of August, we will be celebrating the persons who have made it to the Youth Impact 12 for the past months. We will be having a brief ceremony at NIPAC, and of course we know based on what has been happening, we cannot have any big elaborate ceremony. However, we think it is incumbent on us to celebrate our young people. And so the young persons who will be celebrated on the Thursday, the 12th of August, and the fields that they will be celebrated in are Melissa Clark for Sports Excellence, Brandon Powell for Information Technology, Verna Grant, Education and Lifelong Learning, Ravina Prasad, Youth in Agriculture, Delcia Burke, Volunteerism, and Cecilia Cressy-Starley, Entrepreneurship with Specialty in Culinary Arts. And of course, it is hoped that by celebrating and honoring these young people, it could be an inspiration to many other young persons on the island of Nevis. We have some very serious talent on Nevis in various fields, and we are hoping that through initiatives like these, it could inspire other young persons on the island. So at least for next year, when we have another Youth Impact 12, that we can have more young persons being awarded and honored. Of course, you will be getting more information as to how you can log on and follow the ceremony on Thursday, the 12th of August. Now, last week I would have touched on social services, But I believe practically at all of these town hall meetings, I will touch on social services, because social services is one of the essential services that have been at the forefront of this pandemic that we are going through. Of course, we know that we would have had some lockdowns earlier in the year from around April. And when many persons were at home, the staff from the Department of Social Services, they did not get the holiday that other people got. They had to be out practically every day because they had work to do, and they had to ensure that the work that they had to do was done. And I want to commend the director and her team at Social Services for the stellar work that they would have done throughout this pandemic so far. And so the Department of Social Services, we have been responding to numerous visits and calls from members of the general public over the past months. We continue to do so because we are still going through the pandemic. And I'm pleased to report that from the start of the pandemic and the lockdown and so on, we have responded and assisted. We have assisted over 1,100 persons so far. And we have assisted persons in various ways. The most important is through the distribution of food vouchers. Of course, we know that quite a number of persons would have been displaced during the pandemic, whether they have been laid off without a job or so on. And so we had to distribute numerous food vouchers. And the Department of Social Services have been inundated with calls and visits since the start of the pandemic. And I think we have responded well. We continue to respond well. And so we have assisted persons in food vouchers. We have done some distribution of food packages. We have done a great deal of work in terms of counseling persons during the pandemic. We have responded to our referrals for domestic abuse cases. We have assisted persons with, in terms of the Poverty Alleviation Program, the PAP program. We have assisted persons who have needed assistance in filling their forms for the Social Security assistance. And of course, very importantly as well, we have facilitated persons who have to look after the elderly. Of course, we know that the elderly must be looked after morning, noon, and night sometimes. And so we have facilitated persons, even during the lockdowns, to be able to visit and look after the elderly. And so I want to commend the Department of Social Services once again for the great work that they've been doing, and they continue to do even now. Now, very briefly, I want to touch on something that does not really come directly under me, but something that I will be championing in the months and the years to come, now that I'm the Minister of the Environment on St. Kitts. And this is an initiative. Of course, this is almost at the end of July. But for those of you who have been following the news, listening to the radio and looking at the television, we have been celebrating what we call Plastic Free July. And Plastic Free July is an initiative jointly undertaken by the Ministry of Tourism on St. Kitts and the Ministry of Tourism on Nevis. And here on the island of Nevis, that initiative is being spearheaded jointly by the Ministry of Tourism, the Nevis Tourism Authority, the Charlestown Secondary School Environmental Society, the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society, as well as environmentally minded individuals and businesses. And they have come together under what we have now called the Nevis Sustainable Committee. And so they are leading the charge for us to ban single-use plastic bags and other forms of plastics. Of course, we know about the plastic bottles and so on. The plastic bags, plastic bottles, anything with plastic, they do a great deal of harm to the environment, in particular to our aquatic life. And so we have been pushing here on the island of Nevis, the Nevis Island Administration. We have been working along with the hotels and the supermarkets to try our utmost. Of course, we cannot do it alone, because if we ban the plastic bags here in Nevis and they're not banned in St. Kitts, persons can go to St. Kitts and bring them over, because we are one federation. And so it will be a federal effort. I'm happy that I am now the Minister of Environment on St. Kitts, and as I said, I will be championing that cause for banning single-use plastic bags. I must say as well that the Ministry of Tourism and their partners that I would have mentioned a while ago, they would have done something last week, Friday the 24th of July. They would have gone to Rams, Best Buy in Gingerland and Charlestown and Value Mart, and they would have handed out some lovely cloth bags. And I know that all members on the head table here would have received those bags as well. And we're hoping that persons will come on board, start using the bags, and start refusing the single-use plastic bags. And so, as I said, I commend the initiative, and we are hoping that persons can come on board. And so when we launch all of our initiatives in both St. Kitts and Nevis, we want the buy-in and the support of members of the general public. I want to stay there for now, and we will entertain any questions that you may have at the end. Thank you very much.
Minister Evelyn's focus was on youth and social services, and finally on his environmental project. They have launched a Youth Impact 12 initiative where they are honoring youth in various fields. And on International Youth Day, the 12th of August, these young people will be highlighted and showcased at a prestigious ceremony to showcase them for the area that they have been working in. He spoke of the work that social services, a very essential service area, the work that they have been doing throughout this COVID pandemic. They have been responding to a number of calls. They have assisted over 1,100 persons so far with food vouchers, food packages, counseling, filling out forms, and other social programs, and even looking after the elderly. And lastly, Minister Evelyn's thrust towards the banning of single-use plastic bags, and he's encouraging persons to come on board so that this initiative could become a reality in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you very much, Minister Evelyn. Moving right along, we now move on to Minister Jeffers for him to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me first acknowledge at the head table here the Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, and all of my colleagues who are here with me this evening. I want to say good night to you, the audience, who have gathered here at the Franklin Brown Community Center. And while I'm at that, let me acknowledge and say good night to all of the persons who are listening and viewing on all of the various platforms. And also the NNC is here as well, so that's the Nevis Television. Good night to one and all. And while I'm here in the Franklin Brown Community Center, it brings back some memories of this past federal election. And I believe the people who reside here in the Camps area have always come to this community center and have voted overwhelmingly for the concerned citizens movement. And I want to thank the people of this particular area and also the entire St. James Parish, and also by extension the people of St. Thomas Parish for their overwhelming support for my candidacy and the concerned citizens movement in these past elections, the federal elections that is. And we certainly appreciate it, and you have given us a mandate to continue or build on the platform we have started in the past and see what we can do in terms of realizing some of the commitments that we have made to you, the good people of Nevis 11 and the people of Nevis, and also to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's good to be here this evening, and let me just amplify for a bit something that the Honorable Spencer Brand would have said in terms of the road work that is to be undertaken in Butlers. I believe he passed over it in a kind of glossy way, but I'm elated by the fact that very soon the people of Butlers will be getting some work done, or some rehabilitation work done on the roads there in Butlers. It has been long overdue, but so also are many other roads to be done throughout the island of Nevis. So other communities who are waiting will certainly realize some work on their roads in the not too distant future. But as I said, I'm elated for the people of Butlers who have been patient. And very soon, I'm hoping over the next month thereabout, I've had a commitment that would be done, or started, I must say. Also, while I'm here in Camps and very close to Newcastle, many of you have been passing the Newcastle police station. And that is a project that is coming to an end shortly. As you realize, the contractor would have removed some of the barricade that was placed around the perimeter of that building. Now that that has been done, many of you have called me and have been saying that it is a massive structure. And that is absolutely true. I believe what we have done in this great part is that when we build or we rebuild bigger and better. And I do believe that the policemen and women and also fire officers, male and female, who will occupy that building in the future will feel in some way that they are living in a hotel, an upscale hotel, because the interior is impressive. And I long for the day somewhere around the independence celebration of this year when we'll have the opening ceremony for that particular facility. So it's coming, and I want the people of this area and the people of Nevis to look forward to it with some expectancy. It will be good. So I started with those two local matters, call it housekeeping matters, but I also want to just quickly advertise two events tomorrow. One would be a farmer's market, which will be held on the southern side of the waterfront in the vicinity of the gazebos on the waterfront. The Department of Agriculture have some provisions and fruits that they'll be selling tomorrow. And additionally, local farmers as well will be there selling their produce. Also, well, that starts at 8 a.m., also, at about 10 a.m., the Fishermen's Corp or Society will be putting on a fish fry all day, starting at 10 a.m. There'll be fried fish, fish water, well, all of the goodies, all of the seafood products will be on sale, the lobster and everything. Plus, they'll have fresh fish on sale. I don't want to give you everything because I don't know all that will be available there. All I'll say is come to Charleston tomorrow and lend your support to these two events. At least the farmers are trying, the fisher folks are trying, and they are doing a marvelous job, and they want your patronage tomorrow. So starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow onwards, you'll have a chance to buy all of your goodies that you'll need for the entire Emancipation Weekend. So go on out and patronize those folks. Ladies and gentlemen, last week I touched on agriculture, and I want to continue in that vein this week and touch on a few other things. Before I get into agriculture, though, let me thank the good Lord for his tender mercies towards us yesterday. We were expecting some rain and wind yesterday from a tropical system, and through God's grace and mercies, that would have made a further southern trek away from us. We did get some rain, which was good, but we didn't suffer any major damages. But since we're in the hurricane season, I want to appeal to all of you here and everyone who is listening here on the island of Nevis to continue with your preparation. I know many persons are preparing and have prepared, but I want you to stay in a state of readiness. Because, of course, the same way that storm would have made a southern dip yesterday, it could have made a northern check, and then it would have been more along our shores or impacting us directly. So I want you to stay ready and prepared, because we're not even halfway there yet when it comes to the hurricane season. And I do believe the peak is somewhere around September, so it's much more to come, but we continue to pray. But even though we are praying, we still have to be prepared for any eventuality. So that I want to say from the disaster management side of it, we continue to prepare ourselves in terms of making sure our shelters are in shape. We had a meeting last Friday, even before this particular storm would have made its way in our region. We had our meetings, and we were discussing with all of the various agencies and departments as to where we are and how ready we are. And I think the report that I would have gotten is a positive one. But indeed, in life, you can only do so much as to prepare. Whatever the eventualities are, we just have to deal with those accordingly. But I was saying that last week I would have touched on agriculture, and I want to do so again this week with a somewhat of a different twist. Tomorrow, and I believe the Premier would have spoken about it many times in the past, even up until today. He may speak about it again tonight. But tomorrow, we have a historic sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly to mark the 50th anniversary of the a disaster that we encountered back in 1970 on the 1st of August. That was the sinking of Christina, the MV Christina. The reason why I bring that up is because those of us who are old enough would realize and recognize that back in the day, a lot of our farmers would have gone to St. Kitts to ply their trade, and many farmers would have perished on that particular boat back on the 1st of August 1970, sorry. And I'm saying that because with that disaster, we would have lost a number of farmers. A number of farmers were lost. They would have gone to St. Kitts that morning to sell their provision and the fruits and so forth, and was heading back home with their hard-earned money to spend and to put into the economy here on Nevis. Well, they didn't make that journey back. And what would have happened then is that we would have lost a number of farmers who would have had farms in the hills of Jessops, Hamilton, Butlers, Rollins. All those farms over time would have gone abandoned. And of course, that would have created some difficulties for us here on the island of Nevis, in particular when it comes to farming, because we were what we consider, as some will say, the breadbasket of the Federation back then. And we have had some difficult times in terms of bringing agriculture back to the level that we know agriculture can be, and making the type of contribution that it has made in the past and can very well do now and in the future. And that is why the emphasis has been placed on agriculture in recent years. As a matter of fact, COVID, as I said last week, would have given us a new impetus, so to speak, in terms of the emphasis we are placing on agriculture. And the Nevis Island administration continues to invest heavily in agriculture. Last week I gave you some numbers, almost $750,000 that we would have invested in various areas in agriculture over the last 3 months at least, or from March to at least June of this year. We continue to invest, and as a matter of fact, we are just about to roll out our 4th tranche of seedlings to our backyard farmers and our established farmers, so that we can go out and plant food so that we can feed our people. So the 4th phase will commence shortly, I believe by next week. So I want persons to stay in a state of readiness in terms of listening for when that will be done. And in doing so, we are hoping that with these particular incentives that we're given, it would also stimulate added interest in agriculture. As a matter of fact, today I was toying with the idea that we continue to recognize the contribution of persons in various areas. As a matter of fact, sometimes around Culturama time, we should have been having Culturama at this time. And I will say to you that at this time you'd have been hearing about bar crawl. You all know what a bar crawl is, where you go around to the various bars and you have ladies with all kind of pom-pom and all kind of things making noise. I believe it is time for us to recognize our farmers in such a way that at least other persons who may be thinking or want to get involved in agriculture may be motivated to do so. And when I say recognize farmers, I'm talking about recognizing our most productive farmers or most prolific farmers in terms of what they would have done throughout a particular year. And we go around the island the same way. We go to the various schools. We go to the various institutions where they normally would make a contribution to, so that they can be recognized. And as such, young men and young girls can actually get involved in agriculture, because it would be seen that those who are in front of them or before them are being recognized. So I want us to look at that premiere. Maybe that is something you want to document so that we can look at it further, so we can offer that type of recognition and hold our farmers in high esteem, because they are making a very important contribution to the development of the island of Nevis. If we're able to feed ourselves, and every particular pound of produce that is not imported into the island of Nevis and is produced here, it means then the monies derived from that is contributing to our gross domestic product. And it is increasing our per capita income in many ways. So it has its value, it has its plus, and I do believe it is time for us to make agriculture the pillar that it can be in our economy and be serious about it. I am talking this way because now I am being charged with overseeing the progress of agriculture in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis over the next 5 years. And I want to say that on Tuesday, we had a visit from St. Kitts or to Nevis by the permanent secretary, the federal permanent secretary in the Ministry and Department of Agriculture, PS Ron Dublin Collins. And I'm saying that because, and I'm pointing this out because it was important for him to come to see what we are doing on the island of Nevis. I have gotten a sense as to what is happening on the island of St. Kitts. And when we look at both islands, we're doing some things right. There are certain shortcomings, but here's where I believe we can have some synergies and some harmony among both islands, or between both islands. There are strengths in St. Kitts, there are weaknesses. There are strengths in Nevis and there are weaknesses. If we can build on the strengths in both islands and eliminate some of the negatives, I do believe we can propel agriculture to the level that we have always been talking about. So he came and he had a look at what we're doing at the Department of Agriculture. He is impressed by what he has seen. I want to say to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis that we are committed to growing agriculture, building the type of relationships that we know we can foster between both islands. And of course, if we're able to do that and recognize, as I said before, our farmers, I do believe that that added interest will be brought to this sector. Now, in terms of what we have been doing in the last, or the second half or quarter of this year, I must say, we have done some things back, let's say in April, May of this year that are now bearing fruit. And that is why I'm saying we're having this huge farmers market tomorrow. There are some crops that we would have paid attention to over the last couple of months. For example, we would have planted just over 1.5 acres of tomatoes, and we are seeing a yield of just over 33,000 pounds of tomatoes. That is phenomenal, and that is indicative of the effort that we would have placed in this particular area. In terms of sweet potatoes, we have planted just about 7.5 acres, and we expect a yield of just over 30,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. In terms of sweet peppers, we would have planted just over 1.5 acres, and we expect about 12 or just over 12,000 pounds yield of sweet peppers. Watermelon, which is something that is prolific here on the island of Nevis. As a matter of fact, I can say to you that there is hardly any watermelons being imported into Nevis. So we would have planted just over 5 acres of watermelon, and we are expecting, and we'll have just over 35,000 pounds in yield of watermelon. So those are some phenomenal numbers. Now, what I don't have tonight are the numbers as compared to the same time last year. But I do not think I have to go back to those to point out to you that we have done a phenomenal job this year, because what has created this particular phenomena is the current situation that we are facing, and that is COVID-19. So out of COVID-19, we would have seen some positives. We have accentuated the positives, and that is why we are seeing these tremendous yields. Now, I want to say just quickly one other thing regarding agriculture. It is our intention to introduce both in St. Kitts and Nevis what we call Eat Local Day or Eat Local Week. Now we are fine-tuning the plans for those events, both in St. Kitts and Nevis. And all these are being done to ensure that we understand what it means to eat local. And when we say eat local, we know exactly what we're putting into our produce here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So in terms of knowing what is there, we understand how healthy and how much more healthy our products are here in the Federation. So when we say buy local, you know, you're buying with confidence. We are trying our very best to eliminate some of the health challenges that comes along with the importation of some of these products from countries unknown. Things unknown have been placed into them, so I want us to concentrate on eating and buying local. So agriculture, some may not have the type of confidence that I have, and I hear some negativity along those lines, but I want to say to you, agriculture indeed can have an impactful, some impact on the progress that we'll have here in the Federation as a people. But there are challenges, and all we have to do is to mitigate those challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, another area that I have been charged with is housing. And I'm always told to watch the time. Just quickly though, we still continue to construct houses. But I want to say to you that we're just about to roll out another phase of construction up at Hamilton, in Cherry Garden, and also some additional housing in Madden. We are currently awaiting a drawdown from that mortgage that we would have secured from the Social Security Board. As soon as that is had, then we will continue in the same vein that we had prior to COVID, the onset of COVID-19. And at least I forgot to mention at least University Heights as well, which is just to the back of us here at Garner's. That also we have some additional construction to do there. So at least I can give the assurance this evening to our contractors who rely on the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation for some work. All of the contractors, subcontractors, meaning electricians, plumbers, painters, tilesmen, all who rely on the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. We are not too far away from having the next phase of our construction being rolled out. So housing, we'll talk about that some more as we go around the island. But of course, as I said, we're waiting on that particular drawdown, and it cannot come much sooner than it comes. It's going to come, I must say, because we need it badly. So ladies and gentlemen, cognizant of the time, and we can always go on to other things once we create some discussions later. But I want to yield at this point in time because the Premier will have quite a bit to say, I'm sure. But I want to just wrap up by continuing to seek the support of the people of Nevis in terms of what we are doing through these difficult times, because I believe many who would have seen this government at work over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 to 5 months would certainly give us a tremendous applause for what we have done and high marks for ensuring that we continue to look out for and look after the affairs of the people of Nevis, because that's what we were mandated to do, and that's what we'll continue to do. Even though there are challenging times, we are going through these challenges with a sense of purpose, because that's what we can do best. I want to thank you very much for listening, and we'll develop some discussions later. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I have been doing, rehabilitation work to be done in Butlers, the completion of the Newcastle Police Station official opening will come shortly. Tomorrow, and this is an announcement, tomorrow there will be a farmers market at the Charlestown waterfront, and that starts at 8 o'clock. And then the fisher folks will have a fish fry starting at 10 o'clock, and there will be fishing, all that fish, all day. As a word of caution, Minister Jeffers, who is also responsible for disaster, is asking persons to be prepared for any eventuality of a storm, especially in this hurricane season. So ensure that you have your shutters and your hurricane food supplies on hand. There will be a special sitting of the House of Assembly tomorrow to mark the 50th anniversary of the Christina disaster. As the Federal Minister of Agriculture Tuesday, the Federal PS made a historic visit to Nevis, and that visit is to jumpstart the working relationship, a cohesive working relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. To date, some 145 acres of tomato.
1.5.
1.5? Okay, acres of tomato, sorry. 7 acres of sweet potatoes and 5 acres of watermelon was planted so far. In housing, the land and housing, they are ready to roll out an additional phase, or 3 additional phases, one in Hamilton, Maddens and Cherry Garden, and work continues at the university site. That, in a nutshell, was the report from Minister Jeffers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along, and last but certainly not least, the Honorable Premier, we call on him to give his report.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Chair, and greetings and good evening to my colleagues here at the head table. I'm delighted to be here in the great parish of St. James. As I've said, we are bringing the government to the people, and the entire cabinet is here to have a discussion with the people, what we've dubbed conversations with the people. It is our purpose in being here to share information with you, to let you know what is going on in our respective ministries, but also, importantly, to hear from you and to take whatever questions you might have. I start on, I think, a high note, same way I started today with my press conference, to congratulate Colin, Kezra and Kezi Archibald Jr. for making the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots cricket team for the 2020 CPL, which starts on the 18th of August in Trinidad and Tobago. Kezi is a youngster from Brownhill, and we're very proud of him, and I'm sure you're proud of him all across Nevis. Kezi, in fact, has just returned home with 3 other divisions who all recently returned to Nevis after completing a degree at the J.C. Foster College in Jamaica. And the good thing about these 4 youngsters is that largely through the efforts of Madam Minister Brandy Williams, Hazel Brandy Williams, they were able to secure full scholarships paid for by us to attend G.C. Foster in Jamaica. And so I'm very proud that we have seen it fit not only to talk about our youth, but to invest in our youth. And these 4 youngsters are now living proof of what can be done and how lives can be transformed when the necessary interest is taken and when, as we say, we put our people first. And so, congrats to Kezi and congrats to his colleagues as well, all of whom have come home now from Jamaica and have their degrees and can put their training in sports to work for the benefit of the island of Nevis. While I'm in congratulatory mood, let me also congratulate Jervan Swanston at Nevlec. Jervan has indicated that he has completed an MBA in Energy and Sustainability to the Robert Kennedy College in Zurich, Switzerland, and that has been offered in conjunction with the University of Cumbria in the United Kingdom. We would want to extend congratulations to Jervan. He's one of our own. He's been at Nevlec for some time, and to congratulate him for this signal achievement. While I mention Nevlec, of course, I have responsibility for Nevlec in the Nevis Island Administration, and I would want to take some time to publicly commend the manager, Mr. Pulte, and his entire team. You know, electricity is one of those things that we take for granted until it goes off. The minute it goes off, everybody takes to every possible media and complains, and we understand why. It's a necessity. And I believe that those complaints have grown far less in the last several months here on Nevis. And I found it remarkable that with the wind and the rain that would have affected us yesterday, that the power was generally uninterrupted. There were some areas that had difficulty, but the men were out at the wee hours of the morning fixing those difficulties. And I would want to publicly congratulate and commend Nevlec, the management and the team that has really kept us lit in the island of Nevis and has allowed us even to be here tonight in a well-lit Franklin Brown Community Center. So kudos to them, and may they continue from strength to strength. My colleagues before me have in part mentioned the 50th anniversary of the Christina disaster. On the 1st of August 1970, The inter-island ferry between St. Kitts and Nevis, the MV Christina, in very calm seas, sank just off Nag's Head on its way to Nevis. Over 230 people perished, the majority of whom were Nevisians. As the Deputy Premier has said, many were farmers who were coming back from selling their produce in St. Kitts. Some survived, but the majority died. We have been concerned on the island of Nevis that not enough has been done over the years. Each year here on Nevis we have a commemorative service, and this Saturday, which marks the 50th anniversary of that disaster, we will have the usual commemorative service right on the Hunkins Drive next to the monument that has been erected in memory of those that perished. We will also on Saturday, starting at 10 a.m., have, in addition to that service, we will unveil a plaque, if you will, at the Bath Cemetery. Many of you may know, some may not know, that there is a mass grave at the Bath Cemetery. And we will unveil a plaque there which sets out the names of those individuals, so far as we have been able to discern, who are laid to rest at the Bath Cemetery. We shall also, I'm told, journey by boat and to go out and lay wreaths at the site where the Christina sank. Some who are able-bodied swimmers will swim from there back to shore. And then I gather that a documentary is to be shown of the Christina disaster and the aftermath of that tragedy. I've taken some time this evening to mention the Christina disaster because tomorrow at 10 a.m. we, the Nevis Island Administration, through its cabinet, has determined that we will have a special sit-in of the Nevis Island Assembly. So important we feel is the 50th anniversary of this tragedy that we want to commemorate it in a very historic way. And so we will have tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. an historic sit-in. Historic in many ways. Historic because we are marking the 50th anniversary of this tragedy, but also historic because we have been able to put together a number of speakers, many of whom will speak in the Nevis Island Assembly for the very first time. And what we have asked is that all the former Prime Ministers of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the current Prime Minister, that they attend and that they be given an opportunity to speak on this occasion. Equally, all the former Premiers and the current Premier of Nevis will also be asked to attend and to make a statement. I'm happy tonight to relay to the public that based on information that I have from the clerk of the Nevis Island Assembly, that all speakers have confirmed. And so I believe that tomorrow we ought to be able to experience through their eyes and with their words what this event means to them. For me, it is also significant that this will be the first time that Prime Ministers, former and existing, are speaking in the Nevis Island Assembly, and the first time that I'm aware that statements are being made by them on this particular tragedy. We are well aware that there's a mass grave as well at the Springfield Cemetery in St. Kitts. We are also aware that there is no monument on the island of St. Kitts to commemorate and recognize this disaster, notwithstanding, of course, that many who perished were from the island of St. Kitts. Truth be told, that over the years, this tragedy has always been seen as a uniquely Nevisian tragedy. And so we are hopeful that even now, 50 years on, that through our efforts we will change that, and that all will now recognize it for what it is, which is a national tragedy. And so tomorrow we think that it will be a very historic day. We will have all of these people in the same space. Speaking for myself, I was but a boy. I was born in 1969, and so I was just about a year and a half when Christina sank. And so I would have no actual recollection of that event, and I don't think anybody on this platform would probably have any recollection, even though Eric likes to say his memory is long. I don't think that he will remember what would have happened. But many of us here Indeed, many of us in this audience tonight would have a recollection. Many of us would have lost family. Many of us would have lost friends and loved ones. And some of us indeed would have survived. In fact, this very hall that we find ourselves in is named for one of the survivors of that tragedy, Mr. Franklin Brown. And so this has been our experience. This is part of our history, part of our DNA. And I believe it is important that we, the people of Nevis and the wider Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, recognize this tragedy for what it was. Tomorrow, I am especially looking forward to our first national hero and first Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Right Excellent Sir Kennedy Simmons. And the reason that I'm looking forward to him is that he was the only medical officer in Nevis at the time of the tragedy. And so his memories of this will be very important to be read into the record and into Hansard of the Nevis Island Assembly, because he was the person who was the medical officer in Nevis at the time. And so we can't accommodate everyone. I wish the whole of Nevis could be there. But of course, we have a confined space, and with COVID now, we have restrictions. But I'm asking you to tune in, please, via Von Radio and the other portals that will carry this event live, so that you can be part of that history. And together, through our prayers, through our exaltations, we will bring comfort to those who have survived and to those who have memories of their families that have perished. And so that is what we propose to do tomorrow. And then again on Saturday, as I've said, we have the usual service with a twist this time, that we will unveil this monument, or plaque, at the Bath Cemetery. Ladies and gentlemen, these conversations that we're seeking to have with the people of Nevis are an important part of our good governance agenda. Yes, each and every one of you can come into town and find our offices. Some of us are up at the Social Security building, others are elsewhere in town. They have hidden Mr. Jeffers, Mr. Libert and myself all the way up in Pinnies. They have the others here in the heart of town because perhaps they're more popular, more people want to see them. But you can come and see us, of course, at any time. But we think that it is also important that we come and see you. And that is why we were in Cotton Ground last week, and that is why we are here in this great parish of St. James, this area of Combermere, this week. And we would hope that next week you will join us in Bath Village at the Alberta Payne Community Center. On the 6th, I believe, we will be there, 6th of August at 7:30. And we will do that throughout the island because we are seeking to engage with you in the most efficacious manner and in a manner that is most comfortable for you. That you can simply stroll across from your homes and be a part of our discussion. That, we think, is another manifestation of our efforts at good governance, our effort at reporting to you. Because while many say it, we actually believe it, that we serve you, not ourselves. And we therefore have every right and every need and every expectation in you that we will report to you from time to time. Ladies and gentlemen, it has fallen to me and the cabinet, of course, but to me primarily as a Minister of Finance and the Premier of Nevis in this very difficult time that we find ourselves, to fashion solutions and fashion ideas that will seek to take us out of this tragedy in which we find ourselves. The COVID pandemic has created a health crisis, and we've heard much about the deaths, we've heard much about the sickness, we've heard about flattening the curve, eliminating the curve. We've heard all of these buzzwords and phrases. But more and more we're realizing that the health crisis was only one of the crises, that we also now have an economic crisis that we have to grapple with. And I wish I could sit here tonight and say to you that it is going to be easy. But that would be me trying to mislead you. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. We are a small island which depends on trade and depends specifically on tourism. More so even than our sister island of St. Kitts, we depend heavily on tourism. Our economy, therefore, has been hard hit. The numbers show that our revenue is off already almost 20% from what we would have expected it to be at this time if we were having a normal 2020. 2020 has been an incredibly difficult year for us as a people and for the government, of course, and for our finances. Where our finances suffer, our ability to deliver the services and the goods that you expect from your government also suffers. Our ability to pay our civil servants suffers. Even now, all of us at this table get demands that people are looking for work. That is a perennial demand. And our ability to provide work as a government is hampered severely by the fact that our revenue has been decimated by COVID-19. Graft onto that the fact that we have sought, even with that limited resource that we have, to offer some form of stimulus to our people. You've heard about what we're doing in agriculture. You've heard about what we're doing in social services to expand and ensure that we have the effective safety nets for our people. But in addition, we're doing so much more in terms of the business community to try and stimulate growth and stimulate development. It has been difficult. And those difficulties have now been compounded, ladies and gentlemen, by the fact that the Four Seasons, one of our largest private sector employers, has now signaled that they will be laying off just about 410 persons over the next several weeks. I have commended Four Seasons publicly because they took the brave decision that they would continue to pay their workers for the months of April and May in full, and then they would pay their workers 60% for the months of June and July. The month of July is now coming to an end, and sadly they have said they can't go any further, and as a consequence they now started the layoffs. It's going to be difficult. But I am, when faced with difficulty, always encouraged that the people of Nevis have always faced difficulty, and we have always been able, through the grace of God, to overcome those difficulties. And so I am not here as a Premier tonight daunted by the fact that difficulties are upon us. In fact, difficulties come sometimes so that leadership can be tested. Difficulties come sometimes that your faith and your commitment can be tested. But I anticipate that we have some difficult days ahead. And I want to say to our people that we as a government will be there every step of the way with you. We will be there with you to support, to encourage, and together we will work ourselves through and emerge post-COVID stronger and safer. And that is my commitment to you this evening, and that is what we will seek to do. For those that are being laid off at Four Seasons who are joining the ranks of the unemployed, like those at Montpellier and at Nisbet and at all the other hotel properties, you have our deepest concern, and I want you to know that whatever we can do to assist, we shall. In the interim, we are not sitting still. The cabinet has been knocking heads. We have called in the experts from finance. We have said to them, what are the ideas that we can explore to get some activity in the economy? And one of the things we've hit upon is construction. And they have said to us, and we have accepted, that construction is a good way to generate jobs in the economy. Construction is a good way to generate consumption of building materials, etc. in the economy. And so what we have sought to do is to put a package, a very generous package of concessions together. If you're a first-time homeowner, you can now build your home, getting all of your materials customs duty free and free of customs service charge. You will pay VAT only. If you are not a first-time homeowner, you want to build a second or third home. If you want to add on to your existing home, if you want to renovate your home, this is the best time to do it. Because we're saying for any materials that you purchase over $30,000, you will get customs duty off and customs service charge off and pay only VAT. If you want to put down a building, an apartment building, a commercial complex of some kind, and you're spending over 1 million EC dollars, we have said that you will get your building materials free of VAT, free of customs duties, and you will only pay 12% customs service charge. If you're doing a commercial building under $1 million, you will pay VAT only, and you will get your materials free of customs service charge and free of customs duties. We have said in relation to those last two categories I mentioned, that at least 80% of your workforce have to be Kittitians and Divisions, nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have indicated that those who are interested should apply at the Ministry of Finance, and that, in addition, we are extending those concessions to materials purchased locally. Indeed, we are encouraging our people to purchase their materials locally. If you go to Miami to purchase your materials, you will get the benefit when you come to the port, yes, but it doesn't do as much to stimulate economic activity as if you go to TDC or Hosford's or Island Tires and Hardware. And so we encourage our people who want to take advantage to buy local. What I will also say is that there is an important caveat. You will only be able to get the benefit of this stimulus package for construction if you're able to start your project by December 31st. Let me say that again. You will only be able to get the benefit of the stimulus package if you're able to start your construction by December 31st. So we now have August, September, October, November, December. You have 5 months in which to take advantage. You cannot come to us and tell us, I want to build in 2022, so I want this benefit. No. The idea is to encourage you to build now and to stimulate activity now. That is one of the ideas we have come up with. The second thing that we have been pushing as we try to jumpstart the economy again is the small business development. We have, because I've spoken about it many times, I'm sure you all have heard that we have secured $5 million. And we have used that as a fund to provide seed capital to businesses that are owned by women and by youth. If you're a woman of any age, you can borrow from that fund. But if you're a man, you would have to be 35 and under in order to qualify. And that was a response by this government to service two groups, youth and women, that we felt were underserved, who oftentimes could not secure loans at the commercial banks because they didn't qualify, but who had viable ideas, and ideas that they wanted to use to feed themselves and their families, and even to provide jobs for others. And so through CEDU, the Small Enterprise Development Unit, we have been working with entrepreneurs. You would have heard from Minister Brandy Williams that she now has a boot camp that is ongoing, where we're exposing largely women, but individuals in that category as well, to training, marketing, digital marketing, record keeping, business plan development, and all of those things in order to encourage them to get themselves ready for business. I am very pleased tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to advise that the good people at CEDU have said to me that thus far, they opened this in January. Of course, through COVID, things have been slow, but it has picked back up in June. They're saying thus far they've processed 14 loans, and the total global value of those is $534,471.31. Now, what is important is that we have limited the ceiling of those loans to $100,000. And I know there are a lot of people who say that's not a lot of money. But interesting, as I look through the 14 loans, I realize that some people have only borrowed $6,000. Some have only borrowed $20,000. Some have borrowed $40,000. And only a very few have asked for the $100,000 maximum. Because it really depends on the type of business that you're going into. If you have a little business already and you want to expand it, maybe that you want to buy a freezer, you want to buy some new equipment for your kitchen, and therefore you may only need $10,000 or $15,000 or $25,000 as the case may be. And so we're not trying to ask people to overextend themselves. We're simply saying that this is a mechanism that is now available for you to realize your dream of owning your own business. $5 million is not a lot of money. It doesn't go very far. But we are hopeful that with effective management of this money, we will see the seed capital being provided and an incubator, if you will, being provided for small businesses here on the island of Nevis. And we're pushing that very hard because we want more people to get involved in small businesses. You've heard much said about agriculture. That is another of the efforts that we have been making. And if you're like me and you like to drive around Nevis, I believe that everybody in Nevis is now a farmer. Because everywhere I go in Nevis, I see lands plowed and people working land, as we say. It is really a sight to behold, and it tells you that with the right leadership and the right encouragement that our people can respond. The days of saying that agriculture was outdated and nobody wanted to work the ground and this kind of chatter, those days are over, and we see a lot of young people now using technology, the shade houses, for example, that have become very popular. And the yield and the production, you've heard some numbers already from the Deputy Premier, is amazing. And I believe that we must continue to encourage that. 50 years after this tragedy that was the Christina, I would like us to recommit ourselves to becoming the breadbasket of the Federation again. To recommit ourselves to producing food not only for our own consumption, but for sale in St. Kitts and indeed for sale in some of the neighboring islands. And I believe that we can do it if we put our minds to it and we work hard in that direction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have questions. I believe that I have spoken for long enough. As I indicated, we have a series of these town hall meetings, and we will continue to go from community to community and allow the people in that community to commix and commingle with us and to ask what questions they may have. And so with those perhaps more than a few words, I want to thank you again for being here, and I look forward certainly to engaging with you if you have any questions that you may wish to ask. And I remind you again, please, that you tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the very special sit-in of the Nevis Island Assembly as we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Christina disaster. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. The Premier started his stint by congratulating Kezran Brown.
Archibald, not Brown.
Archibald.
Mother was Brown.
Kezran Archibald on his selection to the St. Kitts Nevis Patriot cricket team, as well as Jervon Swanston for attaining an MBA in energy. He also commended the manager and team of Nevlec for keeping the lights on during the little bad weather we had yesterday. But in general, they have been keeping the lights on lately. The Premier spoke at length at on the activities for the Christina disaster, the commemoration of the 50th anniversary. And though it's 50 years on, the pain is still very fresh in some person's mind. I would believe that every household in Nevis would have lost a family member. Everybody would have known of somebody who had somebody on that boat. And so it is important that it goes down in the annals of our history that there will be a very historic sitting, not only special, but a historic sitting of the House of Assembly tomorrow, as there will be all the past and present prime ministers and past and present premiers who will grace the stage at the Parliament. And so I think that is the first time, so that is very historic. And there will be the usual Saturday morning service The Premier spoke about the difficult times that are ahead. Presently, we have seen our revenues down 20%, and so it would take some resilience on the part of all citizens for us to go through and to weather this storm. It has tested our faith, and it will test our faith and leadership, but together we will be able to come through. And to help combat this very difficult economic time, the concession packages have been given, and the thrust will be on the revival or the push to revive and to get some work done in the construction field as well as through the small business development. There are loans available from SIDU at 3%. 3%.
4%.
4%. And persons who are desirous of starting their own small business could contact SIDU for more information. All in all, it is important that we get into our backyard gardening because food security is the way to go at this time. And so the Premier wrapped up his report, giving us some food for thought, as well as letting us know that we are all in this together, and together we will get through this very difficult situation. Thank you very much, Head Table. The floor is now open for questions. There is a mic in the middle of the floor right there. And so persons who would want to ask questions at this time, feel free. State your name, if you so desire, and your questions clearly, and you can say who you want to direct your question to at this time. The floor is now open for questions.
Mario.
There are no questions?
Oh, no comments.
Any comments? Is there anything you would want to congratulate the team on? We take comments as well. But I would be, okay, there's somebody who is coming to the microphone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Since as there are no other questions, I would like to congratulate my representative, Honorable Alexis Jeffers, on his historic win in the federal election. And I hope that it is the first of many for the Concerned Citizens Movement, not only federally but locally in the St. Thomas's area especially. Congratulations, Honorable Alexis Jeffers and the CCM team. Thank you.
You're going to congratulate the rest of us too?
I did say the CCM team.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
And without further ado, we have no other questions.
Good night, everyone. I'm a Barbadian. I've been living here now for almost a year. I want to say that I feel very welcome, and I intend to make Nevis my second home. I'm coming here as well to, let's say, do a regional project. I wouldn't say any more about that at present, but I have a very good feel with the people of Nevis. I want to say so far that the government, in my view, they've been doing the right things. Where I am looking at is the question of the reopening, though, because obviously there are persons here who can't travel, and there are persons who would like to come here. For example, I always thought that regional tourism, in other words, now that you're closed, it might have been good to allow Barbadians, Vincentians, whoever, to come and circulate, because we were all low-risk countries. Unfortunately, with the death of Liat, that has created that difficulty. What I do, I encourage my fellow Barbadians to consider Nevis, well, St. Kitts and Nevis, but particularly Nevis, as a place to visit. As time goes on, I will take my time to assimilate. I'm happy that I've gotten to see the team and the reports the team have made. My profession, I'm an attorney by profession. I'm not practicing here. I will be called to the bar probably in September or so, as I'm still feeling my way around. So I want to thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. My particular interest at this point is agriculture, in that I believe that is a way out. There are some international loans that are available, and I will share that information, as soon as I can make that contact with Minister Jeffers. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a good time here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, and we are happy to have you in Nevis, and I hope that your stay will be a very rewarding one.
Yeah, you raise a question of the borders, and it's a vexed question because there's no easy answer to it. We have seen other countries in the Caribbean open their borders, and some have had good success, some have had moderate success, some, like the Bahamas, have been a disaster, where they have in fact had to reimpose restrictions on their people. So we are looking very carefully at this. It's a matter that's under active discussion at the cabinet level at the NIA and also the cabinet level at the federal government to determine what is the best approach. We have, as part of that approach, clearly, to do some training of our people, because we have to ensure that facilities would be COVID compliant. We have to ensure that our people, particularly those on the front lines, our taxi drivers, our customs, immigration, that they're trained or retrained. And so we have started some of that process just on Monday of this week, where we hope over the next 8 to 10 days to train as many as up to 1,000 people involved in the front lines of the tourism sector here on the island of Nevis. That is being led by the Ministry of Tourism, the Nevis Tourism Authority, and the health officials. So there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done, but we are up to the task. We are looking very carefully at the good practices that have been developed elsewhere to try and replicate them here. And it is our anticipation that we will be in a position to announce a reopening fairly soon. In the meantime, however, one of the things that we have started to promote is the idea of what the professionals are telling me is called a staycation. So they're encouraging, of course, our own people to leave their homes and go to the hotels and the guest houses and the villas and spend the weekend. And we anticipate that this weekend, for example, many of our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts will come over with their families and spend the weekend on Nevis. Someone said to me jokingly that Nevis is the new Miami, since people can't travel outside the country. They're discovering their own country. And we encourage, of course, our people to go to St. Kitts and enjoy all that St. Kitts has to offer as well. So we expect this weekend to see hundreds, if not more, Kittitians on the island of Nevis, renting cars, doing the horseback ride in the Gulf, the ATV tours, the fine food. We're trying to finalize with the police authorities a food fair event in Charlestown on Monday and Tuesday. We know that Sunshines is having something called, I think, Wine, Food and Carib, he has called it, down on the beach. And there are a number of events. We have poets that are going to be performing. What is it being called this year? Not Poets in the Square.
Nevis Speak.
Nevis Speak. It's being called, where our local poets will be performing in Charlestown. And we hope to see at some point the string band and maybe the masquerades. I want to make it very clear, because the question keeps coming at me. Even tonight, as I've been here, people have been texting my phone, asking me where the jamming is going to be. So I want to make it very clear that there will be no jamming, that we have not sought any permission for any jamming, and there will be no jamming in Nevis, because the COVID authorities have been very clear to us that they do not want us to go down that road. So Culturama has been cancelled, or to use my terminology that Eric uses, postponed until next year. So whichever one you want to use, there's no Culturama, there's no Juve, there's no street jamming. And so I want people to get that out of their heads. While I've been here, a young lady from St. Kitts messaged me and said, which bands from St. Kitts are going to be on the road? And I've said, no bands from St. Kitts will be on the road. So I want that to be clear, that this is not that type of party, and we can't throw caution to the wind. This government is a responsible government. I believe we have acted responsibly throughout this pandemic. We have not been rash, we have been sober and sensible, and the results speak for themselves. We have had no hospitalizations, no deaths. The 4 patients that we had, the 4 positive tests, they have all recovered. And through the grace of God and the hard work of many, we have not had a COVID case in Nevis since the 7th of April 2020. So we have gone now over 3.5 months without any new cases on Nevis. Now, I have been saying, and I continue to say, that we must expect that cases will come. So we cannot continue to stick our heads in the sand like ostriches and pretend that no cases are possible anymore, because Nevis is somehow so blessed that we will never have another case. But what I'm proud of, that at this point in time, we've not had a new case since the 7th of April 2020. And that is due, as I say, to the grace of God and the hard work that has been put in by those on the front line, particularly Dr. Judy Nisbet and the COVID task force that she leads. And so I want to commend them, as I always do, and I want to say that we are very happy with the results that we've had thus far. So this weekend we expect some activity, but not the type that some are hoping for. No jamming, no bands, no DJs on the road. That is not what we're seeking to do at all. Well, thank you very much.
Any other questions from the floor? If not, Premier, I have 2 questions here. Somebody WhatsApp me. In this post-COVID era, are there any considerations for decentralizing government services to the country? They are talking about, especially the collection agencies, month-end, the paying of water bills, NEVLEC bills, and services like the post office.
Well, I think the question is a good one, but I don't know that there's a need at this point, because a lot of bills payments now can be done online anyway. So people can use the electronic mechanisms that are available to pay their bills. They don't have to leave their home. And for those who do have to leave their home, Nevis is so small that really Charlestown is not that far away. And we have now introduced at all the government offices the necessary protocols, the social distancing and the like. So I really don't anticipate that there would be too much difficulty. And when we do the cost-benefit analysis, the cost of setting up some type of decentralized system compared to the benefit that one would get, I believe that we are not yet at that stage. We will, of course, continue to monitor. But it's a good question. I just don't think that it's necessary at this point to decentralized government functions.
The second question is that some hotels have now reduced their rates and they are quoting EC to encourage persons to have staycation. If this is something that you will encourage in this slow period going forward.
Well, the hotels are private sector. You know, as much as I think that government can influence behavior, the reality is that the private sector must order its affairs to suit the market. It is possible that now that they've seen some success of offering these rates, that they will continue to offer these kinds of rates in the slow months. But I think that once the flights resume, and once they have persons coming in, and we know that Nevis tends to attract the higher end of the market, and people can afford to pay the $1,000 a night, then I think they'll go back to that. But in the interim, I agree that it seems to be working, and that people seem to be benefiting, and the hotels, I'm told, are full. So that being the case, I think that it ought to be encouraged. But I would say that, you know, we have to be careful. The government cannot set rates for the hotels. The hotels set their rates, and the market will decide whether the rate is set at the right level.
And there is one question for Minister Jeffers in diversifying the economy. Is there any thought towards the revival of pottery in the St. James's area?
Well, you asked about a thought. I suppose it is a good question to ask at this time, with so many different opportunities posing themselves during these particular period of time that we're encountering. The pottery has been an establishment that has been there for many, many years. Of course, it is operated by cooperative. And of course, cooperatives in Nevis have not always succeeded. And I'm somewhat disappointed about that for sure, because cooperatives in other countries have proven to be the lifeline and actually a means of providing employment and revenue generation by those organizations that are found in other countries. If you look at the Windward Islands, for example, a lot of cooperatives exist. And I would want to encourage our people to look in that direction in terms of forming cooperatives here and maximizing the benefits that can be had, because of course there are numerous agencies one can tap into, international agencies that is, but you can also only do so and get the necessary funding if you're a part of a body called a cooperative. Governments cannot tap into some of these resources. And that is why some other countries are taking advantage of the millions of dollars that are available. Now, if, for example, the Newcastle pottery, the cooperatives that run that particular pottery was a vibrant one at this time, perhaps they could have sought the necessary finances to rebuild that structure that is there, and indeed, in the process, create the kind of interest that I know that that particular industry can certainly do at this particular time. I know for sure that some of the products that have been produced, they have found their way to the Virgin Islands. They can be seen all up and down Nevis. I mean, we are old enough to remember going there to buy a coal pot, or the Rasta man would go there to buy a yabba dish, for example. So, you know, the products that have been produced there have been products that have been sought after, and it is indeed an opportunity for us to perhaps sit down as a community and see how we can foster some sort of partnership to bring that cooperative back to life. I want to commend Miss George, anyway, Miss Cornelius, for her effort over the years. But she has done so almost single-handedly with some help from other persons who have gone there. But I believe that it can be an area that can certainly be exploited, but it does need some coming together in terms of bringing our resources together, or mental capacities together, in order to come up with ideas and fashion our way forward, so that we can really capitalize on what it can do to this community and the island of Nevis. So there is potential. We just have to harness those potential and to see in which way we can build a vibrant society there once again, or cooperative once again. But in all that I've said, it is simple it can be simply put that there is potential that can be harnessed. And of course, we can look at that moving forward.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? I saw a hand up in the back earlier.
This is just a continuation of my previous comments. One of the things I love about the Concerned Citizens Movement is that they really know how to campaign. The last campaign was very enjoyable. It was haphazard in the sense that it was not what we are accustomed to, but it was the most professional haphazardness I've ever experienced. It impressed me as something that was thrown together at the last minute. But it was so wonderfully done that you would think that people went to university and had PhD in doing these things. So, whoever put it together, congratulations. I think it's from 30-something years of experience that we have been doing campaigning. And I think you all should, get out a manual to sell to overseas, not local. We don't want no competition. How to run a successful campaign. Every night, it was something new, even though it was the same speakers. So, whoever sat down and put the campaign together, congratulations. It's not surprising that we won. We are expected to win, but you all really did a good job. And I hope that, and I think you all do, but take the same spirit, professionalism, and enjoyment in government. And you all will succeed in your different departments. Congratulations again on a job well done. Thank you.
Charlene, can I ask you something, please?
Yes.
Did you enjoy the dancing?
Yes.
Thank you. Don't say any more. Thank you.
Now, I'll say it half ear.
While we're waiting, though, Charlene, I must say that one of the persons we can depend on, rely on, and can be assured will be at our meetings every night is you. And I must commend you. Over the years, you have rallied with this party for various reasons, and none of them, I believe, are personal in terms of personal gratitude or enrichment. You have followed this great party because of the ideals and the ideas of this party, and I want to thank you for your tremendous support. Of course, some may see you supporting this party, and I'm also rallied as a result because of the very nature of Charlie Nugget. I want to thank you, and I believe this party owes you some gratitude. One of these days you'll find a way to probably salute you in the right way. I want to thank you for your support to myself, to this great party, and the island of Nevis, because by extension, and you talk about us and the way we campaign, and perhaps we should send some of our ideas abroad. Well, our ideas have reached abroad, because I think, haven't you seen it, Premier? Someone is using our slogan, People Matter Most.
Yes.
Somewhere in the States or somewhere inside somewhere. And they have now twisted to say something else. But at least we have always come up with some excellent ideas. The last slogan we had was Keep the Momentum. And we went to St. Kitts, and in St. Kitts, the campaign slogan out there for our partners was securing
a safer, better, safer future.
Better, safer future. And we went down
Stronger, safer.
Stronger, safer future.
Or stronger, safer future. And we went down and said we are keeping the momentum for stronger, safer future. You hear how sweet that sounds? So we were able to combine the two just in one night. Yeah? But we've always tried to run a clean, wholesome campaign that any member of the family can come along, sit and listen, and go home with something that they can feel enriched about. Because we don't disrespect in terms of bringing negativity to our platform. And we're going to continue in that same vein into the future. And that's why we've been successful as a party. And it starts here, and it filters down to everyone else, as a matter of fact. And that is why I'm proud of this great party and the leadership. And I wish I can remain a CCM until I die. Oh, you look, I will be a CCM until I die.
Colin, I want to thank you for your comment, because I believe that CCM party have had an extremely good foundation that was laid. And to me, it was a foundation that was laid on some very good principles, respect. And our present leader have certainly embraced that foundation and have taken it to a different level. And I believe that all of us who are now in the CCM party understand that foundation that was laid. We recognize that we are only here for a while, and we need to ensure that whatever we do, we must be able to attract younger person. And I believe that this particular campaign, we would have seen a number of young persons who are being drawn to the CCM party, because I believe that they recognize that this is a party that is serious about people. We are not perfect. All of us have our difficulties and our faults and so on, but our main goal and main objective is to serve the people of Nevis. And I believe that because of the foundation that was laid by our founding fathers and mothers, we are continuing that legacy, and we will continue that legacy. And I believe that your comment is a clear indication that we continue to do what the founding fathers have instructed us to do. Take this great party to a higher height, to attract young people, give them the opportunity to come into the party and flourish. And we believe that whenever we are off the scene, we are pretty confident that this party will continue. So I want to thank you for those words of encouragement.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kavali Daniel, and the lady spoke earlier of a CAT scan machine. I would like to know exactly how to donate. If after the meeting I can get with you and you can give me the information.
Of course, I'll be happy to do that. So right after, we'll meet and I'll give you the information.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank all of you for coming out this evening, showing your support and coming to talk with us as we bring to you what we have been doing over the past months and some plans as to how we go forward. I would also like to thank the persons from NNC who have broadcast this session this evening, as well as those persons who were streaming. The session was streamed live, so I'm thanking all those persons who logged on and those who have sent in questions. I would also like to thank Von Radio, the voice of Nevis, who has been a constant corporate citizen in the broadcasting and carrying of the sessions live. And so I would like to thank all for coming out, and we look forward to your continued support, your continued suggestion. We move to Bath Village next week, Thursday, that's the 6th, and we are expecting you to come along and to encourage more persons to come. Come with your questions and come ready to have a dialogue with us. Thank you once again for coming. Safe journey home.
Excellent timing.
We could do it.